It is said that in a universe ruled by unstoppable aliens, beings capable of harnessing incredibly advanced technology and manipulating black holes at will, entire galaxies can be obliterated in an instant. Amid this chaos, an orphaned child embarks on a dangerous journey to find his mother. The story becomes even more intriguing when a group of armed individuals enters a building and begins scanning the surrounding area. One of them notices movement. Immediately, they all raise their guns, switching on their flashlights. Their beams reveal a small child covered in countless scars. He tries desperately to run, but they quickly capture him with a net. Sometime later, the child opens his eyes to find himself lying on a bed. Bright sunlight floods the room, nearly blinding him. The place is a children's shelter. As he slowly attempts to sit up, everything feels unfamiliar. The smooth floor, the clean clothes, and the meals that arrive on schedule. The child spends most of his time on a hill, avoiding others. One day, a group of children finds him alone and tries to invite him to play. Instead, he crouches down like a wild animal, screaming loudly and scaring them away. Just then, a butterfly flutters near his head, and he becomes captivated, playing with it. A red-haired woman observes him through a window. She turns to a nearby girl and asks if the boy is unable to speak. The girl shakes her head, explaining that he simply hasn't learned how yet. She adds that the rescue team suspects he was raised by animals. When she jokingly calls him Mowgli, the other girl looks puzzled. The red-haired woman laughs, remarking that young people today might not recognize the reference, and that's understandable. She explains that it's from a story that existed before the boy arrived. Suddenly, a bell rings from the roof of a house, and all the children gather around a young girl. The boy, known as RMC, watches curiously as she begins distributing letters to the children. Suddenly, he hears a voice. A little red-haired girl explains to him that it's a letter sent by a sponsor, someone who sometimes sends gifts. She asks if he has a sponsor, but he doesn't respond. Undeterred, she grabs his hand and drags him along. Later, they bury him in the soil as they argue about whether adults are good or bad. Half are kind, and half are not. While they eat together, the girl talks about how one child received a massive toy from a sponsor and wouldn't stop bragging about it. She mentions that Lily's sponsor even bought her clothes. As they study, she tells him that Joe actually spoke with his sponsor once, which she finds disgusting. After a moment, she declares that she doesn't need a sponsor because her mom promised to come back for her. That night, as they hide under a table, she confides in him. She says that after she sleeps for just 100 nights, her mom will return, and 100 nights will pass in the blink of an eye. Then, her voice softens. She hopes her mom comes soon. As he listens to her hopes and fears, he gazes at the night sky. The stars seem to blink rapidly as if time is slipping away. One day, someone shows them an alien toy, claiming it came from the farthest reaches of space. A teacher gathers the children and tells them how they all became friends. However, a bespectacled boy interrupts, saying that's not true. Another child asks why the teacher would lie. The boy smirks, explaining that adults say things like that because they think kids are too young to understand the truth. To prove his point, he pulls out a large book and places it in front of them. Curious, another child asks where he got it. He admits that he took it from the principal's office. Flipping through the pages, he begins reading aloud, revealing that long ago, aliens arrived on Earth. Humans fought back using a super powerful weapon called HAEK, but the aliens ate it. In the end, the humans had no choice but to surrender. One of the children frowned and asked why the aliens would eat a weapon. The kid with glasses shrugged and said simply, "They were just hungry." The bell in the tower rang once more, and all the kids gathered around a young girl who was distributing letters. She called out the name Mori, our protagonist, and handed him a letter that had just arrived for him. As he held the letter in his hands, he examined it closely. The young girl told him that he had a sponsor now and asked if he wasn't happy. Suddenly, the clang of a bucket hitting the ground caught his attention. Mori turned to look and noticed the little red-haired girl standing there, her eyes welling with tears. After that, she sat crying under a table. When Mori approached, she told him to go away, so he started pacing around the room. Suddenly, she heard a cracking sound and turned to see what it was. A broken cookie lay on the floor, and Maury stood nearby, looking nervous. She asked if these were the only things he treasured, then sadly picked up the cookie. Hiding her face, she admitted that, in reality, 100 nights had already passed, but her mom still thought she couldn't count to 100. Tears streamed down her face as she murmured that she was all alone now. Suddenly, Maury leaned against her back. Confused, she turned around but soon broke into a quiet smile. She pulled out the cookie and asked if she could really eat it, making Maury uneasy. Then, she waved the cookie in the air in front of the drooling Maury, and they both burst into laughter, playing under the table. That was when she realized he was illiterate. Taking the letter from him, she noticed that it only said, "Hello there." Confused, she turned it upside down, checking for more. Just then, Maury noticed something falling. It was a stunning, radiant blue crystallized flower. He was astonished to see such a thing. Later that night, he held the same flower in his hands, while the other children around him slept. Bringing it close to his nose, he inhaled its scent, mesmerized by its fragrance. Soon after, he drifted into a peaceful sleep. The tower bell rang once more, and a girl excitedly called out to Maury, showing him a new letter. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman handed him several gifts, commenting on how lucky Maury was. When his friends arrived, they were astonished to find Maury seated amidst a towering pile of presents. The red-haired girl started reading his letter, but it was written in basic words and still had untidy handwriting. Meanwhile, his other friends eagerly inspected his gifts. Among them was a talking doll and a set of colored crayons. They wondered who this person was and why they were being so generous. Perhaps they were incredibly wealthy? Or maybe they had some hidden motive. The vibrant crayons gleamed brightly, drawing Maury's attention even more. Just as he was about to eat one, they quickly stopped him. When the red-haired girl showed him how to use it, realization hit him like a lightning bolt. And just like that, time went by. The weather was warm, so the children decided to help with the laundry. They eagerly rolled up their pants and began washing the clothes with their tiny feet, some even turning it into a playful game. Perplexed, the red-haired girl wondered what was so fascinating about it. As Maury stepped on the clothes, little colorful bubbles formed, making him even more excited, until he suddenly slipped and tumbled into the bucket. Someone called out to the red-haired girl, just as she warned Maury not to step too hard. Before she could react, she heard her name being called. Turning around in confusion, she saw a woman rushing toward her, calling out, "Radina!" Overcome with joy, she dashed forward, accidentally toppling the bucket in the process. As she reached the woman, she threw her arms around her, crying out, "Mom!" As Radina embraced her mother in front of the other orphaned children, Maury stood there, completely stunned, watching the scene unfold before him. The next day, Radina's eyes were swollen from crying. She told Maury to take care and cautioned him not to eat too fast, or he'd end up with indigestion. Then, she handed him her shoes and a small bag, gently telling him not to walk around barefoot anymore. Suddenly, she began crying again, looking even more endearing, and quickly wrapped her arms around him. Through her tears, she told him he absolutely had to be happy. Maury smiled and held her just as tightly in return. After some time had passed, Radina stood with her mother, bidding farewell to the other orphaned kids. Among them, Maury silently watched everything unfold. Then, without a word, he returned to his usual spot on the hill. Even though the absence of a friend left a big hole in his heart, he didn't feel lonely, because the letters and gifts someone had sent were still by his side. The cloak was as soft and comforting as warm sunlight. The colorful crayons and talking doll brought him so much joy, and the kind letters carried the gentle scent of fragrant wildflowers. As Maury breathed in the delicate scent of the flowers and the letter, memories began to surface. He recalled the time when his friends eagerly speculated about the sender's identity. In that moment, the image of Radina's joyful face filled his mind. Then, Maury pondered, could this person be his mother? Maury gathered his belongings and placed them in the bag his friend had given him. He glanced back one last time and bid farewell to the orphanage in the distance. As he took his first steps, he noticed a railway ahead. Following the tracks, he set off on an unknown path to find his mother.